Hello, it's Eason, and welcome back to Movie Friday, where I talk about movies that I might recommend that you watch or avoid for your Friday nights, Saturday evenings, or just your weekend in general. This week, I'll be talking about the 2018 award-winning opus written and directed by Zach Lapowski and Adam B. Stein, two names that you may recognize from the Disney Channel live-action movie adaptation of Kim Possible. The said movie is the genre-bending, extremely fun ride that is Freaks. When I say genre-bending, what the movie actually does might be a little bit different than what you expect, which is something that you're going to hear a lot during this review, because if nothing else, Freaks is an excellent movie in terms of subverting audience expectations. But before I get to how the movie manages to blend multiple genres into itself, I want to get a little bit into the plot. Freaks is about 7-year-old Chloe, skillfully portrayed by Lexi Colker, who is trapped in a house with her overly concerned, some might even say paranoid father who doesn't seem to sleep a lot, portrayed by Emile Hirsch. It is her father's contention that one day Chloe is going to have a normal life, but in order to have a normal life, as in a mom and, by his indication, a sister, she has to be normal enough to go out because, according to the dad, there is an imminent and extremely mortal danger lurking outside that Chloe should not be exposed to. Sound familiar? One thing that's immediately noticeable is that just this basic summary invites comparisons to the plot of, say, 10 Cloverfield Lane, especially with the way that a father figure, in this case the literal father, is trying to shelter someone from a danger that they insist is definitely out there, but the audience has no proof of it. The father-daughter duo's isolated, extremely sheltered life also seems to be regularly compromised, or regularly harassed, I should say, by a creepy ice cream truck man, Mr. Snowcone, played to absolute creep-fuck perfection by Bruce Dern. Now, all this would have made an interesting psychological thriller in the vein of 10 Cloverfield Lane, with our protagonist, the cute-as-a-button little Chloe, against the clearly mentally ill father. But there is more to it than that, which is the first instance of Freaks subverting your expectations. While you are not shown what the imminent danger is, you can't help but wonder, as many did with 10 Cloverfield Lane, if there really is something extremely dangerous outside. So questions of whether or not Chloe's dad is actually insane, or if he is the only sane man who's trying to protect the one that he loves most from the dangers lurking right outside the door, is an open question, at least at the very beginning. You see, Freaks isn't exactly about Chloe discovering what lies outside the boundaries of her home, despite the movie's poster and some of the trailers would have you believe. Quite contrarily, Freaks is not only about what is outside, but it is also why being inside is so important. I know, that sounds a little bit confusing and not all that informative, but hear me out. The movie starts out by giving you a picture of what Chloe and her dad's daily life is like. And apart from the paranoia angle and her dad seemingly taping up windows left and right and shit, everything seems weirdly ordinary, but the movie manages to create a little bit of creeping suspicion and starts to push you towards something going on that you as the audience are not aware of through its unique method of exposition. You see, Chloe is not just supposed to represent the protagonist, she also functions as the primary audience surrogate, in that the movie insists in locking the audience into her perspective. As a result of this, you only know as much as Chloe knows. This isn't really out of the ordinary, because in movies things can be hidden from protagonists and by virtue of that from the audience, but the approach Freaks takes is just a little bit different, mainly due to the fact that there is a huge age and therefore experience gap between Chloe and the audience. As a result of this, things that Chloe doesn't seem to be aware of, doesn't really pay attention to, or dismisses out of hand for what whatever reason, become things that you, as an audience member, latch onto and start factoring into your observations. As a result of this, the more Chloe acts like the child that she is, the more you tend to realize that the world around her is made up of more than she realizes, therefore also forcing you to empathize with the seemingly insane father. Earlier in the movie, there's a scene where Chloe and her dad are playing a variation of poker, and they're playing it with real money. The twist is that the money isn't a bunch of crumpled up single-dollar bills, but actual fat stacks that would make trap rappers shooting music videos jealous. Now, you as the audience member recognize that the inordinate amount of money that they're just casually playing with is kind of weird for the setting, especially considering the fact that their house looks to be in a state of disrepair. But for Chloe, it is just something that she puts in to place a bet in a game that she regularly plays with her father. This is the gap that I'm talking about between the perspective of the protagonist and the perspective of the audience that the movie thrives on. This gap in perspective is also utilized in order to deliver exposition to the audience without having two characters sit down at a table and talk about shit that they already in universe know but the audience doesn't, so they gotta talk about it. For instance, Chloe's dad is often watching the news and or falling asleep watching the news. Chloe doesn't really care about what's on TV, but you as the audience start catching the news reports and start putting pieces together as to what might be going on outside. Of course, the movie also has its more overtly creepy moments, such as frequent appearances by a Harper, a neighbor girl that Chloe insists is her best friend, even though we know that she never goes outside, and the appearance of a crying woman in her closet, which she thinks is a ghost. But while those elements reinforce the feeling that there's something weird going on here, they don't create the feeling, and as a result, the overall creepy mood of the movie isn't dependent on these elements. This lock-in with the girl's perspective is also utilized by the movie to transition between the genres that it incorporates into its whole. This is where the genre bending aspect that I was talking about comes into play, in that Freaks doesn't really take elements from genres, mix them all in a bowl, cook it, and then serve you the results. Rather, Freaks tends to transition between genres, so what the movie starts as is very different in terms of basic genre categorization than what the movie ends up as. The primary method by which the movie transitions between different genres is Chloe's perspective and therefore the audience's growing. As she learns more and more about the world that she inhabits and what is going on outside of the house as well as inside it, and so does the audience, the movie starts to become something else entirely. And as the movie goes from one genre to the next, the movie's tension curve seems to always go up, because as you learn more about what's at stake, the stakes themselves seem bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until everything reaches a feverish breaking point at the end. At first, the conflict seems to stem from Chloe not having any family outside of her dad and really wanting ice cream. Then it gets to Chloe demanding ice cream. Dad goes out, but then comes back wounded with a gun and says that he might have been followed, and it goes like this from there. Every time the plot moves forward, you learn more, and every time you learn more, you become more aware of the dangers of the world outside, and the more you become aware, the bigger the stakes get. The bigger the stakes get, the tenser the movie becomes. Freaks, if nothing else, is a masterclass in escalation, because the movie wholly depends on you starting in this very confined little space and then expanding, and expanding, as a result constantly escalating what's going on. As a result of this constant escalation and constant transitioning, the movie is extremely fast-paced for a movie in which not much action actually takes place. Now, for the performances, Emile Hirsch delivers a very nice performance as the constantly stressed the fuck out, possibly insane father who's trying to protect his daughter from unnamed dangers. For her part, Lexi Colker delivers what I believe is a very skillful performance as the little Chloe. Now, being a child actor, I was sort of on the fence about what to expect from her, but she nails it every time. Chloe's overall confusion, her lack of grasp on things, her naivete, and her innocence come across as clearly as any other emotion that she feels during the movie. If she's angry, it shows. If she's sad, it shows. There's even a scene where she's actively trying to deceive her dad, and it shows that she's doing her level best to do it. And her later scenes in the movie, the more serious scenes, are delivered with an unexpected gravitas and a razor sharp focus. Bruce Dern as Mr. Snowcone does a very nice job as the cantankerous, terse old man who's creepily trying to make a contact with this little girl for whatever reason. And he only becomes more interesting after his motivations for doing so are revealed, which I'm not gonna go into because this is one movie that I don't want to go into spoilers for at all during the review of, because it is important that you explore the world as the protagonist does. As for the downsides of this movie, I would say that the extremely contained nature of the perspective, due to it being locked into that of a girl, may not appeal to everyone. To use another Cloverfield reference, Freaks utilizes what I like to call the man on the street perspective. It is the type of perspective where you are watching everything unfold at the street level. Like, if you take Cloverfield as the example, you are following a bunch of people who have the camera in their hand instead of just seeing everything unfold from a rather omniscient viewpoint as most movies would have you. As a result of this, you don't really get all that much exploration of the world that Freaks takes place in, even though, like I said, the movie manages to paint a nice enough picture for you about what's going on. Most of it is left to the audience's imagination, as these are things that Chloe does not know or does not learn about. There is also some somewhat dodgy CGI at the very end. It's not too bad. I mean, it's kind of on the level of all those sci-fi movies that you see, but it is used very sparingly and there is very little of it, so you really don't mind it all that much. But I mean, conspicuous CGI aside, the movie actually has nice enough cinematography. Like, it's not really all that special, but it gets the job done quite well. The house that most of the movie takes place in is really well designed and feels especially lived in, aside from the fact that it looks fucking filthy all the goddamn time, but there's a good explanation for that in universe. So as you might be guessing, I absolutely do recommend that you watch this movie. It is a fast-paced, engaging, thrilling, extremely fun ride which is well put together and well worth your time. If you are at all interested in the genres that you see this movie mentioned in the same sentences, such as sci-fi, horror, thriller, drama, you are going to get a kick out of it. Everyone else is also guaranteed to enjoy it, so just watch it. I highly doubt you will be disappointed. For myself, I'll be on the lookout for even more victims to share this movie with. So until next time, hope you have a great weekend. It's Eason. Peace out.